everyone to season 7 of Kidlit International, where we talk about all things Kidlit and children's books. Today I have with me Holly from Canada, Chris from Europe, and Lauren and Karen from Sydney and Brisbane, Australia. Today we are going to dive right in and talk about children's books and the messages we send within them, within the stories. Are they too message heavy these days? I know there was a time when, I guess through the COVID days, and since then there's been a lot on diversity and inclusion and all those things that have arisen and come about, and we do need those books. But have we kind of lost sight of the imaginative, the playful books? So just putting it out there, where do we think, what do we need in kids' books? And I guess I'm probably talking picture books, but kids' books in general. So what are your thoughts on that? Karen, what are your thoughts on that? You're about to release a picture book.
Yeah, Vespa. I think, first of all, it depends on the publisher, because some publishing houses are totally into imaginative, creative books that empower children, and it's how the messaging is done that is important, because it's not the fact that it may have a message, because every picture book does have a message. It's whether it's shouting at children, and I don't think these books ever will get published, the ones that are telling children what to do or how to be. The picture books today make children think and make their own choices. And that's what I think any good picture book will do with a message. Sure, there are some books that have a specific message. I don't write that way, but if there's a need for them and a publisher sees it, they'll want to publish it. But I think in general, most picture books share joy, love, hope, kindness, how to navigate your way in the world, how to be who you are, and to shine. I think picture books want kids to shine. So as long as the messaging is about empowering, not dulling, and allowing children to know they can shine and they have their own power. And I think that's the change with picture books from the past to now. Yeah, picture books are saying, even if they're historical, it's like this happened, but how you react to that is your power. It's important to know things, but it's your choice how you react. And I think creative picture books, quirky, unusual, ones with multiple layers, children take from them what they need, not what you want them to take. The child takes what they see in the book. It's not about what you want them to take from the book. And every book's different and every book's unique. And sure, there are books that have a specific purpose, but they do have a need. And then you have the wonderful books, like these ones are so old, but they're so iconic. Like there's a hippopotamus on our roof eating cake, Hazel Edwards, and Judith Kerr, A Tiger Came to Tea. I mean, who wouldn't love a book like that? And there are modern ones too, like that. So I think they all have a place, but it's how they're told more than the message, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. And I like the way that you've said a few times that it's giving the power back to the kids, and they just take from it what they need to take from the story, and each child will take something different. Lauren, You published The Lolly Shop, and that was actually through COVID. Tell us, what are your thoughts on it?
I've got so many thoughts because I also interviewed so many people on my podcast about this. And I know a lot of people feel there's a lot of trends because there are a lot of topics that are being told through picture books because it's a learning tool as well. So it's a go-to if you're going through something specifically in your life, or if there's a classroom topic. Naturally, a really good way of talking about something is with a book and a picture book, and you can then open up the conversation a little bit better. But it does take me back to when I was a small child, and I read so much, but all the books I read had no message. They were really silly and fun. Like, um, I'll just be really honest. I read like the Bear Stained Bears. I read Dr. Seuss. Like the Cat in a Hat, which I don't think Thing 1 and Thing 2 had too much of a message, other than that's a really simple book week costume. I don't know. Like I read like a lot of golden books that were really just fun and cute. And I think I grew up with just as much as an equal awareness to the big topics of today than someone who was, say, a bit more guided of the youth of today, with all the messages in the books. So I think, is it too focus driven? I'm not sure, because I don't know enough about the publishing industry, but I do know they're great tools for topics of conversation. If you're trying to talk to your child or anyone in your life. But the other aspect is, for myself with my publishing journey, is my stories have been widely judged critically and negatively because of people assuming the lack of message in there. So one of the bedtime stories I created with my children, The Lolly Shop, is my boys had a magical lolly shop, and every lolly that they produced had a different power. But in the story, for those who've read it, you'll hear these stories where the children use them for confidence. There's relationship building, all of these other layers to a story. But a lot of people looked at it straight away from a very outside point of view, going, oh, it's just all about consuming sugar and lollies. But I've seen, I guess, messages in a book where my kids now believe the power of storytelling. Tell a story no matter what it is. If it has a message, tell it. If it doesn't, tell it. If it's a form of healing, do it. I think storytelling can't be taken away from anyone at any age because you feel like it may not have such a heavy message to it. I think just tell your story, have fun with it, enjoy it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, Lauren. Chris, what are your thoughts on it?
It actually takes me back to being 4 years old, this conversation. Had a birthday party in a pub in London, and there was an Australian author who'd come out with a book called Bandicoot and Friends. I do still have the signed copy of it, which is now too many years old. But she also did an almost Punch and Judy show with it. If there was messaging in it, I have no idea what it was. But it's exactly as Karen said, you take the child takes what they want from it. And that's exactly how it felt. And all these years later, I still remember every second of it. And that was kind of a love affair with the book that had already started. Um, it was really weird when my books came out. I certainly didn't set out to write a message in them. It never even crossed my mind. It was, I'm writing about the dogs. That's it. And then people started coming back to me going, did you realize you'd written about bullying? Did you realize you'd written about teamwork? And I went, no, I didn't. But if that's what you're taking out of it, it works. And it's that old thing of authors and illustrators, we all leave a little bit of ourselves in every single book. So I'm sure a therapist will look at even my more grown-up books and go, yeah, you talk a lot about these topics. Maybe that's a therapy session. At which point my answer is, nope, I'll write another book instead. It's cheaper. So, um, so there's that whole, if we try to preach to kids, it's not going to work. And it never does. kids don't like instruction manuals. Kids like using their imagination. And it goes back to that whole growing up climbing trees. You learn how much it hurts when you fall out of the tree. But that's how kids learn. And giving them that imagination, they'll be the ones doing the same as I've just done 40 something years later, remembering that picture book. And a woman coming all the way over from Australia to London, which back then wasn't as simple as it is now. And building this whole career through a Punch and Judy show and these books that just live with you forever. I actually looked up on one of the shopping sites a few days ago how much a copy of this book would now be, and it was over 2,000 Australian dollars. And it's kind of wow. I wish I could charge that for a book. It'd be great. I only need to sell one. Um, and when you look at things like that and the lengths people went to actually get their books across there, having fun, giving out messages that each kid would just take on their own. And it goes back to that whole don't necessarily try and write a message. The message will be there, and every kid's going to find the message in there somewhere. And it will be the message they want and need to find rather than us telling them what they need and want to find.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And that's coming through very loud and clear, isn't it? Holly, what's your experience with kids' books?
You know, what I always view is how kids have a certain way of imagining anything is possible. Like they arrive and there's no restriction. They just have this open, they're an open book themselves. They think of something they want to do and they just say, I'm doing it. When are we doing it? There's no, they're not worried, they're not scared, they're just going to do it. They get the idea, they're going to do it. And the thing that I'm always a little taken back with is how a lot of times adults will start saying to children, oh, you can't do that. That's not possible, this kind of stuff. And instead of just letting them, they have a big dream and they just want to do it and just allow them, let them use their imagination. We don't need to control every thought that the kids are having. And so I just think it's so beautiful if you can just almost like zip it when they're talking, when they start to talk, like just let them say whatever and do things. I mean, of course, not things that are dangerous, but they just want to, they have an idea, they want to do something. Just support them in their imagination. And then, they'll always work towards doing bigger things. Like, I just find you see a lot of talk about even adults later. They just don't dream big. They just never did. They didn't have the belief. And people would always say, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, in fact, yes. I mean, we can do things. All we have to do is put our mind to it. And I think this is like the whole conversation. Like, I think we need a little balance of the types of books. But this really makes me think a lot about this term that I've heard later. I heard later as my kids were growing up, and it was about helicopter parents. Just really being over top of the kid, trying to control so much of what they were thinking, doing, saying. And I just don't think it's just not necessary. Like, they very much like how it was explained about how people take what they need. I think we have to support them in being able to pick up those messages. The subtle, like their kids are just, they're so incredibly intelligent. Like they're like, a lot of times we think we're trying to guard something from them, and they might be in the next room, but they are so tapped in, they know exactly what's going on. And here we are busy over here trying to keep it away from, and then next thing you know, they'll just lay it on you, something you're like, wow. Yeah. Yeah, I just think the imagination of a child is just so beautiful, and it does not need to be stifled.
Well said, Holly. Well said. Yeah, yeah. And I guess I know that through teaching early childhood, and I think Karen, you in your teaching days too would really know the impact of what Holly has just said. Kids and their imaginations. Anyone who's worked with kids, it's just there, isn't it? It's. But we as adults sometimes try and stomp on it. We try and do that helicopter parenting, teaching, whatever with them. And we just can't do that anymore. And that, to me, that goes back to what you said, Lauren, about just tell the story and just tell it. Doesn't matter what it is. Kids will take from it what they want, what they need. And they will tell you a story back. They will always give you a story back. So, yeah, it's a really interesting conversation. And I guess one thing that we do know is that, that will never change in kids' books, whether it's a picture book or an older child's book. They will always be empowering to that child that reads them. The child will always learn from them. The stories are always layered, but the kids just take what they need. And yeah, that is also really important. Does anyone have anything lastly that they want to add? Maybe for young writers who are out there, new writers to the genre, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them? Karen?
I picture books like a garden full of flowers, and they're all different flowers, and they're all unique, and they're all special. And then you'll imagine children in the garden, and they're picking their flowers. They're picking their book. So if you're a new writer, there's a place in the garden for you, just like all of us. We're all creating our own unique flowers, and there's enough room for everyone. And kids need stories, and they need all different sorts of stories. We're all different, so all our stories are different, and kids are all unique, and they know what they like, and there's no need to tell them what they should do and what they shouldn't. They know. They're smart. They know what, depending on their maturity, because picture books can go from 3 to 12. There's a place for all those flowers. Like they take what they need, and just let the stories and the kids shine. Oh,
I can't hear you.
yeah,
Jen, I can't hear
I didn't
you.
want to say anything.
I think you're mute there.
So I did mute myself. My dogs are just, I don't know if it's the new moon or what, but they're just barking really badly today. Sorry, Chris, any last words from you?
Yeah, I think the key part, just write the story. The messaging will be in there, and it will be the messaging the kids want to see and need to see at that time. So if you are a new author, literally just focus on writing the story. The rest will be in there naturally. There will be times you want to make the point and reinforce the point, but if reinforcing that point isn't part of the story won't work and the kids will switch off. So just make sure everything is part of that story and focus on telling the story. Then the rest will flow.
Absolutely. Last words from you, Holly?
I would just say, just encourage those big ideas.
Yeah, yeah. And kids are full of big ideas, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Lauren?
Yeah, I have I have a lot of last words. And no, because I agree with Karen. I love what Karen said about the garden and picking and stuff. But I think it's also you have to stay authentic to you. If you write silly, funny stories and that's your vibe, stick with it. Don't try and force it by thinking, okay, well, publishers at the moment are doing XYZ. I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. Don't do it. Write your own story. Stay authentic to you. And also, if your child is picking up a book over an iPad or a screen, I'm going to say almost doesn't matter what book that is. If you're trying to encourage certain messages or certain, like anything, if your child is picking up a book and just wants to read it, that's a win as well. Also, get them to create their own stories. Who cares what, like, it's a beautiful insight, and write them down, because one day that child is going to grow into a teenager and at least you still have these stories, message or not, basic or not, terrible grammar or not. It's something beautiful to hold on to for life. The story is important. So sorry I rambled there.
You didn't.
Rambling is good. It's good. All good advice. So thank you, everyone, once again for your insights and wisdoms. Good conversation, and something I don't think we have actually spoken about before. It will be interesting to see what other people think and get their views, especially up and coming new writers who are looking at writing in the kids' book genre. So thanks, everyone, and I will see you again next week.
Thank you.